Chapter 1. The Moon's Chosen. The Pack's Shame. The night smelled of cedar and iron, the scent of power. Moonlight slicked the courtyard in silver, glinting over armor, banners, and the circle of wolves gathered to witness the sacred bond. I stood barefoot at the altar, my pulse stuttering beneath my skin, my throat dry from hope. This was it. The moment the moon would bind me to Ronan forever. My Ronan. My fated mate. The High Elder's staff struck the stone 3 times, each thud echoing like a heartbeat. Lyria of Ironfang, step forward. I obeyed, trembling but smiling. My wolf purred quietly inside me, full of anticipation. The mark on my neck shimmered faintly, alive with the moon's blessing. I lifted my chin toward Ronan. Tall, sure, the golden-haired beta every wolf admired. But his eyes, they didn't look at me. Not really. They looked through me, cold as winter glass. "Ronan of Iron Fang," the elder called. "Take your mate and seal the bond." A hush fell. I waited for his touch, the brush of his teeth. I waited to feel whole. Then, "I refuse." The words hit like claws. My heart skipped, then stumbled. "What did you say?" Ronan turned toward the crowd, voice steady and loud enough for all to hear. "I will not mark her." Laughter died instantly. A few gasps followed, sharp as broken glass. My wolf whimpered, pressing against my chest, confused, panicked. "Ronan," my voice cracked. "You can't. The moon chose." "The moon made a mistake." His tone was calm, final. "I will not bind my bloodline to weakness." Weakness. He meant me. Every whisper around me became a knife. Omega. Lowborn. Unfit. I felt their stares burn into my skin, their pity like acid. "Don't do this," I begged, stepping closer. "You swore." He turned away. He didn't even flinch. The High Elder's voice trembled with shock. "The mate bond is severed by will, so let it be done." Something inside me broke. The mark on my neck seared with fire, blinding white before fading into cold. I collapsed to my knees as pain tore through my chest, as though the moon herself had ripped me open. And just like that, it was over. Ronan walked away. The drums fell silent. And I, the moon's chosen, became the pack's shame. Chapter 2. The Broken Mark. By the time the crowd dispersed, the courtyard was empty except for me. The torches hissed softly, smoke curling around the moon's altar. My knees ached from kneeling too long, but I couldn't move. I just stared at the stone where everything had ended. The mark on my neck was gone. I touched it anyway, hoping to feel something. Warmth, spark, pain, anything. There was nothing. Footsteps crunched behind me. Elder Marin appeared, his fur-lined cloak sweeping the floor. "Go home, child," he murmured, "before they find new ways to shame you." "I was his mate," I whispered. He sighed. "Were. You must learn to live as if you never were." The words hollowed me out. Then the moon failed me. "Or she tests you," he said quietly. "Only the steel-hearted survive her lessons." "Then I'll become steel," I muttered, but my voice wavered. He left me there beneath the cold, uncaring sky. What followed was a blur, packing what little I owned, wrapping my mother's pendant around my wrist, and walking out before dawn. The guards didn't stop me. They didn't even look at me. As the gates of Ironfang slammed shut behind me, the sound echoed like thunder. Final. The forest stretched before me, dark and endless. My wolf whimpered, uncertain, but I forced my feet forward. Because if I stopped, I'd shatter. Because if I looked back, I might crawl. Still, with every step, guilt gnawed at me. What if he was right? What if my blood really was too weak, too tainted, too small? No. My voice broke through the silence. He was wrong. I clutched my pendant tight. The metal was cold, but it steadied me. Somewhere behind me, I swore I heard laughter, his laughter, carried by the wind. The sound made my eyes sting, but I didn't cry. Not again. Instead, I walked faster, until Ironfang disappeared behind the trees, swallowed by shadow. The moonlight followed me for a while, then left too. Chapter 3: Exile of an Omega. Snow fell that night. Thick, slow, silent. It covered my footprints before I'd taken 10 steps. Maybe that was the moon's mercy, hiding me from what hunted in the woods. My breath came in white clouds. My stomach growled. My fingers ached from cold. But still I moved, because stopping meant dying. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Hunger blurred time. I learned to drink from frozen streams, to trap small animals, to sleep beneath blood oak root when storms howled through the mountains. My wolf, though frightened, began to adapt, cautious, clever, silent. Yet every night I dreamed of Ronan, of the way his eyes looked when he said weak, of how the crowd turned away, of how the moon had watched and done nothing. Maybe she pitied me. Maybe she didn't care. One morning, I stumbled upon an old shrine buried in frost. Stone wolves with cracked faces stared up at the gray sky. I knelt before them, numb fingers brushing ice from an inscription too worn to read. Was it really a mistake? I whispered to the air. Or am I? The forest didn't answer. Instead, it growled, low, menacing, close, rogues. My body went still before my mind caught up. My heart hammered as 6 shadows melted out from the trees, eyes gleaming, teeth flashing. I backed against the shrine, my claws unsheathing instinctively. Stay back. They didn't listen. One lunged. I dodged, barely, slashing its shoulder. Another caught me from behind, teeth sinking into my arm. Pain exploded through me. I screamed, twisting free, kicking, clawing. The snow turned red. The world narrowed to teeth and breath and blood. Still, I refused to fall. Even so, my strength faltered. Too many, too fast, too strong. When the largest rogue lunged, jaws wide, I braced for the end. But then, the world roared. The ground itself trembled. The rogues froze mid-snarl. A scent filled the air, cedar, fire, and a presence so powerful it stole the very breath from me. From the shadows stepped a man cloaked in silver fur. His eyes burned like molten steel, bright and wild. The rogues whimpered. Then they ran. I collapsed, snow soaking my clothes. The stranger knelt beside me. His voice rumbled low, rough as thunder. "You're bleeding." I tried to speak, but the world tilted. Before darkness took me, I saw the faint silver crescent glowing on his hand. Power. Ancient and alive. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was mercy. But as the world faded, one thought clung to me like a heartbeat. The moon hadn't abandoned me after all. Chapter 4: The moon had other plans. The world tilted. Snow pressed against my cheek, cold as death. Somewhere far away I heard voices, not words, just sounds, deep and commanding, like thunder wrapped in fur. I tried to move, but my limbs were heavy. My fingers brushed the ice, and that was when I smelled it again, cedar, fire, and a presence so powerful it stole the very breath from me. Maybe it was the moon's cruel joke, saving me only to haunt me with the scent of a wolf who could never be mine. As the darkness wavered, I saw him, not clearly, just pieces. The gleam of metal, the curve of a clawed hand, the faint burn of silver fur glistening beneath the moonlight. Someone lifted me. His arms were warm, impossibly strong. My head fell against his shoulder, and my fading senses caught a single heartbeat, steady, ancient, too calm for this chaos. "Alpha," my wolf whispered weakly inside me. But not one of ours. The world blurred again, and this time it wasn't cold. I heard the sound of horses, the creak of armor, the mutter of men who bowed without meeting his eyes. "She's bleeding," one said. "Barely alive," said another. "Leave her, my lord. The rogues will come back." The voice that answered was low, quiet, the kind that didn't need to shout to command obedience. "No one dies on Silverclaw soil," he said. Silverclaw. Even in my haze, the name struck me like a whisper of thunder. I had heard of them, of him. They said the alpha of Silverclaw was not born of a pack, but of the moon itself, that his mother had carried him in silence through the northern storms and birthed him beside the frozen lake where the stars bent low to see him. They said he could tear a man apart without shifting, that no wolf dared meet his gaze twice, that even the moon hesitated before marking him. Kale. That was the name the wind carried through the north. Kale of Silverclaw, the alpha king without a queen. And somehow, I was in his arms. Maybe this was the moon's final punishment, to let me be touched by a legend only to wake and find it gone. The rhythm of his stride was steady, each step sinking deep into the snow. His scent filled my lungs, wild, clean, sharp, and I couldn't tell if it terrified or calmed me. Somewhere inside me, my wolf whimpered, not in fear but in recognition. Still, my mind drifted. I saw flashes of memory, Ronan's cold eyes, the sneers of the Iron Fang pack, the moment the mark faded from my neck like ash. I thought I had no tears left, but the warmth that slid down my temple betrayed me. Kyle didn't speak, but I felt it. A shift in his aura, something softening, something curious. His hand brushed the back of my head briefly, a touch so careful it barely existed. Then the world tipped again, and the darkness pulled me under. What followed was a blur of sound and heat, the scent of burning wood, the faint echo of wolves howling in the distance. Not mournful, but protective. I tried to open my eyes, but the weight of sleep held me still. Through the fog of half-dream, I thought I heard him again, that quiet voice cutting through the firelight. "She'll live," he said. "Are you sure she's worth it, my lord?" someone else asked. A pause. Long, heavy, unreadable. Then, "The moon doesn't waste her miracles." The answer rippled through me, a spark under my skin. Maybe it was the fever. Maybe it was fate. But as I drifted deeper into sleep, I knew one truth without understanding why. This alpha wasn't just a savior. He was the storm the moon had sent for me. And when I woke, my life would never belong to Iron Fang again. Chapter 5. The Stranger in Silver Fur. The snow still carried the scent of blood when I found her. I'd tracked the rogue pack for days, beasts with no loyalty, no reason, only hunger. But I hadn't expected to find a she-wolf among their victims, let alone one still breathing. She was small, shivering, her clothes torn and soaked red. Yet her scent, it wasn't fear alone. Beneath the iron and frost was something else. Wild, defiant, familiar. The moon's scent. I knelt beside her, pressing 2 fingers to the hollow of her throat. Her pulse fluttered weakly. "You fought them," I murmured. "Foolish. And brave." She stirred, lips parting, a whisper escaping. My name, though she couldn't have known it. "Kale." The sound hit like a strike to my chest. No one had spoken that name in years. Without another word, I gathered her in my arms. She was light, too light. Bones and ice and fading heat. My cloak wrapped around her easily. By the time I reached the Silverclaw stronghold, dawn was rising. The fortress rose from the cliffs like a crown of stone, its banners snapping in the wind. My guards looked startled as I entered the gates. "Alpha Kale," one stammered. "You've returned with—" "A survivor," I said. "Prepare the healer's hall." They obeyed. None dared question the tone. I laid her on a fur-lined bed near the hearth. The fire crackled, throwing gold across her pale skin. She looked fragile, but not broken. Even unconscious, her face held something fierce. My beta, Loran, entered quietly. "Rogues again?" "Yes, but they were running from her." He frowned. "An Omega did that?" "Not just an Omega." My eyes traced the faint scar at her neck, the remnants of a faded mark. A rejected one. Lauren's gaze sharpened. Iron Fang? Perhaps. I didn't look away. But she bleeds like us. She fights like us. That's enough for now. He hesitated. And when she wakes? Then, I said softly, we'll see if the moon has sent me a warning. Or a gift. Chapter 6. Wounds and Watchers. I woke to warmth. For the first time in months, warmth. Firelight flickered across a wooden ceiling. Fur blankets covered me, soft and heavy. My wounds were bandaged, my body aching but alive. The scent of pine smoke and leather filled the air, comforting, masculine, dangerous. Then I heard the footsteps. Slow, measured. He entered like he owned the air itself. The man from the forest, Alpha Kyle. His presence pressed against my senses before he even spoke. He was taller than Ronan, broader, with dark hair that fell across eyes like burnished silver. The kind of eyes that saw too much. You're awake, he said. I swallowed. You saved me. He nodded once. You fought like someone who wanted to die. My chest tightened. Maybe I did. His gaze softened, barely. You shouldn't. The moon doesn't waste breath on the doomed. I laughed weakly. The moon's already made a fool of me. He tilted his head. Iron Fang, then. The name made my stomach twist. How do you know? Your scar. He gestured to my neck. That kind of burn doesn't come from fire, only rejection. The words hung between us, heavy and unkind. Still, something flickered in his tone. Not judgment, recognition. I looked away. It doesn't matter. I'm no one now. No one? He echoed, stepping closer. You fought 6 rogues and lived. That's more than most warriors. I got lucky. Luck doesn't bleed and keep fighting. Silence stretched. His scent filled the space between us, sharp and wild, like rain before a storm. My wolf stirred restlessly. Why help me? I asked quietly. Kale's eyes lingered on me, not as a man looks at a woman, but as a predator studies something unexpected. Because the moon doesn't make mistakes twice. Before I could respond, he turned and left, the door closing softly behind him. I lay back, heart racing. Something about him unsettled me. His calm. His command. The way his presence filled the room even after he was gone. And beneath it all, the faintest echo of something I thought I'd lost. The pulse of a bond. It shouldn't have been possible, but I felt it, clear as day. The moon had plans yet. Chapter 7. Firelight and Secrets, Firelight and Secrets. The fire crackled low in the hearth, painting the walls in gold and shadow. I sat wrapped in a fur blanket, the warmth soaking slowly into my bones. My wounds had closed, but the ache lingered, not in flesh but deeper. The kind of ache that comes from remembering who you used to be. Kale watched me from across the room, silent as stone. His eyes caught the light, silver and unblinking. He'd barely spoken since bringing me here, yet his presence filled every corner, every breath. Eat, he said finally, nodding to the bowl beside me. I obeyed. The stew was hot, spiced with herbs I didn't recognize. The flavor burned my tongue, and for a moment I almost smiled. You cook? My people do, he replied, his voice low. But I don't ask them to serve when I'm the reason they stay up through the night. I blinked. You mean, for me? You nearly died on my border. The least I could do was feed you. The least. The words stung more than they should have. I set the bowl aside and met his gaze. You didn't have to save me. And yet, he said, I did. He stood and moved closer to the fire. The light framed him, broad shoulders, rough hands, the faint scar that ran along his jaw. Every inch of him radiated control, power wrapped in quiet. Tell me, Omega, he said, not unkindly. What were you doing in the Frostwild alone? My throat tightened. Running. From what? From who? I corrected softly. He turned his head slightly. A male? The word made me flinch. His eyes narrowed. Ah, a mate. He was nothing. My voice cracked on the lie. Cale studied me for a long time, his expression unreadable. Rejection leaves scars deeper than teeth. I swallowed hard. I'm fine. He gave a short, humorless laugh. No one who says that ever is. Silence settled between us again. The fire popped. My wolf pressed forward beneath my skin, restless beneath his gaze. Finally, I said, "Why does it matter to you?" He turned then, his eyes like storms. Because broken things have a way of calling to me. The words lingered, heavy and strange. My heart skipped. Before I could speak, he left, the door closing behind him with soft finality. Even so, I couldn't sleep. The image of him, tall, dangerous, impossibly calm, burned behind my eyelids long after the fire died. And somewhere deep within, the mark that should have been dead pulsed once.
Chapter 8. The hunt snow fell again that morning, light, steady, relentless. I watched from the balcony as my warriors prepared for the hunt. The rogues had returned, slipping past our borders in search of blood. It was time to remind them who ruled the Silverclaw lands. Behind me, soft footsteps. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. "You shouldn't be walking yet," I said. Lyria stopped beside me. "You said you needed every fighter." I glanced down at her. She'd traded her healer's robes for a leather tunic and a borrowed blade. The sight shouldn't have pleased me as much as it did. "You can barely stand." "I've stood through worse." Her tone carried something that made my wolf stir. Defiance wrapped in pain. I should have ordered her to stay behind. I didn't. "Fine," I said at last. "Stay near me. If I tell you to run, you run." "You think I need your protection?" "I think you haven't learned what it means to fight beside an alpha." She lifted her chin. "Then show me." Bold, I thought. Most wolves flinched when I raised my voice. She challenged me instead. Hours later, we tracked the rogues to the river pass. The scent of rot hung heavy. The snow churned with claw marks. Lyria crouched beside me, studying the ground. "They moved in pairs," she murmured. "Two upwind, one behind as bait." I blinked. "You've hunted rogues before." "I've survived them," she said simply. Then the forest erupted. 3 shapes lunged from the trees, snarling. I moved first, claws out, teeth bared, slamming one into the snow. Lyria rolled clear of another, slashing its side with quick precision. She fought like someone who'd been broken and rebuilt sharper. No hesitation, no fear. Still, one rogue slipped past her guard, claws catching her arm. I caught its throat mid-lunge and snapped it clean. Blood steamed on the snow. She met my gaze, breathing hard. "You said I couldn't stand," she gasped. I smirked. "I said you shouldn't, not that you couldn't." The tension between us shifted, heat where there had been distance. I looked at her too long. She looked back. The world felt too quiet. Then the wind shifted, carrying her scent, wild honey and wolf fire. It hit me like a blow. My wolf growled low in my chest, unbidden. I turned away before instinct betrayed me. "Let's go," I said, voice rough. "The forest's clean for now." But I knew I was lying. Nothing in me felt clean anymore.
Chapter 9. The moment before dawn. The fire had burned low, its glow soft against the stone walls. I sat close to it, knees drawn to my chest, watching the embers crack and fall like tiny red stars. Beyond the window, the Silverclaw forests slept beneath a shroud of mist. No howls tonight, no wind, just silence. The kind that pressed against the ribs and made every heartbeat sound too loud. Cale had returned from patrol hours ago, his armor still damp from snow. He hadn't spoken much since. He never did when something weighed on him. Yet even when he was silent, the air around him pulsed, heavy, electric, as if the room itself knew who he was. Now he stood near the hearth, half in shadow, watching the flames instead of me. The light kissed the edge of his jaw, glinting off the faint scar that cut across his temple. He looked carved from storm and frost, too still, too controlled. And yet, somehow, I could feel him thinking. I should have looked away. I didn't. The longer I stayed here, the more dangerous it became. Not because of what he was, but because of what I was starting to want. "You haven't slept," he said quietly. His voice startled me, smooth but rough around the edges. "Neither have you," I replied. He turned his head slightly, enough that I saw his eyes. Silver in the firelight, ancient, searching. "You still dream of them," he said, not as a question, but a knowing. I nodded, fingers tightening around the blanket. "Sometimes." He didn't press. That was what made it harder. The silence after his questions always left me exposed, forcing me to hear my own truth. Outside, the first light of dawn began to bleed through the clouds. The fire hissed softly. "Tell me something," he said after a moment. "When they cast you out, did you believe you'd die?" The question hit harder than it should have. I stared into the embers, letting the memories flicker, the rejection, the laughter, the cold. "Yes," I said finally. I thought that was the end. Everything I'd ever known, my pack, my purpose, my bond, gone. I didn't think there was anything left worth fighting for. And now? I hesitated. The answer hovered between us, fragile and alive. "Now I'm not sure what I believe," I whispered, "but I'm still here." Cale moved closer. The heat of him reached me before his shadow did. My pulse jumped. "That," he murmured, "is what matters." His tone wasn't kind. It was something deeper, like approval, like recognition. My wolf stirred beneath my skin, restless, drawn. I felt it in my bones, the tether pulling tighter every time he looked at me. "You shouldn't look at me like that," I said softly. "Like what?" "Like you see something I don't." He tilted his head, the faintest curve touching his mouth. "Maybe you don't know your own reflection yet." The words lodged in my chest. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air thicker. My heart raced, too fast, too loud. He stopped a breath away. I could smell him, cedar, smoke, and cold steel, power wrapped in quiet. "Your wolf reacts to mine," he said, voice low. "You feel it too." I swallowed hard. That doesn't mean anything. He leaned closer, and the space between us burned. "It means everything," he whispered. For a heartbeat, the world vanished. No past, no pain, only this. His gaze dipped to my lips, and the firelight painted gold across his skin. My breath caught, and I hated how much I wanted him to close that final inch. But he didn't. Instead, he stepped back. The cold rushed in immediately, cruel and sobering. "Rest, Lyria," he said, his tone quiet again. "Tomorrow we train at dawn." And just like that, the moment shattered, the almost that wasn't. When he left, I sat by the dying fire, every nerve still trembling. My wolf whispered his name once, like a prayer it wasn't supposed to say aloud. "Cale." By the time the first light touched the horizon, I knew the truth I didn't dare speak. I was no longer afraid of him. I was afraid of what he made me feel. Chapter 10. Shadows at Silverclaw. The Silverclaw fortress was alive long before dawn. Steel clashed in the courtyards, the scent of smoke and sweat thick in the air, and I could feel it, the eyes that followed me wherever I went. They didn't need to say the words. I heard them in every whisper. The Omega, the outsider, the Alpha's mistake. Each stare was a reminder that no matter how far I'd come, I was still the girl who'd been thrown away. But I was done breaking. So I trained. Harder than anyone, longer than anyone, While the sun slept, I ran until my lungs screamed. When it rose, I trained with the warriors who sneered the loudest. If they wanted proof I belonged here, I'd bleed it for them. By the third morning, I could barely lift my arms, but I refused to stop. That was when Loran, Kale's second, stepped into the ring. "You're going to fall before you impress anyone," he said, twirling a staff. I wiped blood from my lip. "Then I'll fall standing up." A few wolves snickered, waiting for me to humiliate myself. Loran smirked, tossing me a training blade. "Show me what Silverclaw's Luna is made of." The fight was brutal. He was faster, stronger. Every strike calculated to break me. The first hit sent me sprawling. The second nearly took my breath away, but something inside me refused to yield. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was pain. Either way, when he came at me again, I rolled under his swing and caught him in the ribs hard enough to make him grunt. Gasps rippled through the ring. For the first time, silence followed me. "Again," I said. We fought until both our arms trembled. My breath burned, sweat stung my eyes, but I kept going. I needed them to see. Not as pity, not as weakness, but as strength. When the match ended, I dropped my weapon, chest heaving. The courtyard stayed quiet, except for one low clap that echoed through the air. Kyle stood at the edge of the arena, watching, unreadable. But there was a flicker in his gaze that wasn't anger. It was pride. "That's enough for today," he said. "The rest of you dismissed." The crowd scattered. I stayed behind, breathing hard. Kale's shadow fell over me. "You don't have to prove yourself to them." I met his eyes. "I'm not doing it for them." "Then for who?" "For me." His lips curved just slightly. "Good." When he walked away, my heart didn't stop pounding. But this time, it wasn't from the fight. That night, I stared into the mirror at the bruises painting my skin. They didn't look like shame anymore. They looked like armor. Chapter 11. The Battle at Frostvale Ridge. The night before the attack, the air changed. The wind carried a metallic scent, blood waiting to be spilled. My wolf stirred restlessly, pacing inside me. Something was coming. At dawn, the alarm bell shattered the silence. War cries echoed through the fortress. Rogues had breached the Frostvale Ridge. Kyle's voice thundered across the hall. "Every able warrior, ready in minutes." I grabbed my weapons before anyone could stop me. I'd earned my place here. I wasn't hiding while others bled. The snow crunched under our boots as we rode out. The forest loomed dark, the world cold and colorless. But the fear that once ruled me was gone. All I felt was purpose. When we reached Frostvale, chaos met us. Rogues poured from the trees, snarling, wild-eyed, reeking of decay. I didn't hesitate. My sword met flesh. My wolf howled inside me, fierce and unafraid. One rogue lunged for Kale's second, Loran. He was bleeding, faltering. I didn't think. I just moved. The rogue's claws tore across my shoulder, but I drove my blade into its throat. Blood splattered my face, hot and sharp. The beast dropped, twitching. Loran stared, breathless. "You saved me." "Try not to need saving again," I panted, grinning through the pain. The battle raged on, the snow turning red beneath our boots. When it finally ended, the sun broke through the clouds, pale gold on a field of ruin. Kyle found me standing at the ridge's edge, my arm bleeding freely. "You're hurt," he said. "I've been worse." His gaze darkened, jaw tight. "You disobeyed my order to stay back." I fought beside my pack. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Snowflakes drifted between us. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "You're reckless," I shrugged. "You're welcome." That earned a low laugh, the kind that made my pulse skip. "You saved my second. The pack will remember that." "So will I," I said quietly. As we walked back through the snow, the others followed in silence. Not because I was Omega, because I was one of them. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt powerful. Chapter 12. The Blood Moon Marking. The blood moon rose that night, full, red, and burning. It hung over Silverclaw like a living thing, its light spilling over stone and snow until the entire fortress glowed crimson. The pack gathered in the courtyard, their eyes fixed on me. Whispers ran through the crowd. The Omega who fought at Frostvale. The Alpha's chosen. Kale stood before me, bare-chested, his scars gleaming under moonlight. The power that rolled off him was almost tangible, thick and electric. But his eyes, his eyes, they weren't the cold silver I'd first seen. They were warm, alive. "Lyria," he said, his voice steady but low, meant only for me. "You don't have to do this." I met his gaze. "Yes, I do." Because this wasn't about acceptance anymore. It was about becoming. The night air burned against my skin as I stepped forward. My wolf pressed against my ribs, thrumming with anticipation. The bond between us hummed, not yet sealed but undeniable. When I reached him, Kyle's hand rose, brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. "Once I mark you beneath this moon, your life will be bound to mine. You'll bear the title of Luna, not as a name, but as a vow." "I'm not afraid," I whispered. His breath hitched, almost imperceptibly. "Then kneel." I knelt before him, not as the girl who'd been rejected, but as the woman who had survived everything meant to destroy her. The moment his teeth sank into my neck, the world ignited. Fire, light, pain, power. It rushed through me, wild and relentless. My body arched, my wolf roared, and the old scar, the mark that once symbolized shame, burst into flame before fading into silver light. The energy surged higher until it felt like the moon itself was inside me. My vision blurred, my heart thundered, and every ounce of pain I'd ever felt turned into strength. When it was over, I was on my knees, gasping, but I was smiling. Kale's hand rested on my shoulder, grounding me. "Lyria of Silverclaw," he said softly. "My Luna." The pack bowed. A howl split the night sky, and the fortress trembled with it. The mark on my neck glowed, not the faint shimmer of an Omega, but the radiant light of an Alpha's mate. I stood, my blood still singing, my body trembling from the force of what I'd become. For the first time since my rejection, I didn't feel broken. I felt infinite. The moon had given me back my power, and I would never lose it again. Chapter 13. The Letter Sealed in Gold. The morning it arrived, the air felt wrong. A courier stood at the Silverclaw gates, young, nervous, his breath ghosting in the mountain air. He clutched a gilded envelope so heavy with wax it looked more like a crown than a letter. "Delivery from the Iron Fang pack," he stammered, "for Luna Lyria of Silverclaw." My name on his tongue felt strange, like something borrowed from another life. Kyle took the letter before I could, his hand wrapping around it like it was a weapon. He broke the seal, and the faint scent of ash and cedar drifted up. I didn't need to read it. I already knew. The gold seal, the arrogant handwriting. I'd seen it before. "Ronan," Kale growled, his voice low and dark. He read in silence, jaw tightening with every line. Then he handed it to me. The words were written in perfect, practiced strokes. "By decree of the Iron Fang Council, you are invited to the mating ceremony of Beta Ronan and Lady Selene of the Mooncrest bloodline, to be held under the high moon in the Hall of Fangs. All neighboring allies are welcome. May the moon bless this union." It ended with a flourish, signed simply, "Ronan." I read it twice, then again. The words blurred, but the meaning burned clear as day. This wasn't an invitation. It was a challenge. Kale's voice cut through the silence. "He dares summon you to this?" I set the letter down on the table. My pulse was calm, too calm. He thinks it'll hurt me to see him with another. Then he's a fool, Kyle said, and he's forgotten who you are now. But as I stared at that gold-inked paper, the ghosts came creeping back. The altar, the whispers, the night he'd rejected me beneath the moon. Kyle noticed. His hand came down on mine, firm, grounding. Don't let him drag you back into the ashes you already burned through. I met his eyes. You think I'm fragile enough to break again? He smirked faintly. No, I think he's fragile enough to try. For a moment, silence filled the hall, just the sound of the wind brushing against stone. Then Kyle said softly, "If you want, I'll have his courier escorted out. We can forget this ever reached us." I looked down at the letter again, the gold catching the light like blood. "No," I said. "We won't forget." Chapter 14. The Mockery. Revealed that night, I couldn't sleep. The letter sat on my desk, glowing in the moonlight like a cruel little secret. I traced the edge of it again and again, wondering what kind of man writes to the woman he discarded, and signs his name as if she'd forgotten it. In the courtyard below, I could hear the guards training, their laughter echoing faintly. Kale's wolves had no idea that one letter had awakened every shadow I thought I'd buried. "You're awake," Kale's voice came from the doorway. I turned. He stood there in the dim firelight, bare-chested, his expression unreadable. "I didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." He crossed the room and leaned against the window frame beside me. "You're thinking about him." I didn't deny it. "I'm thinking about why he sent it. He wants me to come, wants me to see him happy, wants me to remember what I lost." "What you escaped," Kale corrected. The word landed heavy. Escaped, not left. Escaped. I looked at him, at the scars on his chest, at the quiet fury in his eyes. "He thinks I'm still the Omega who begged for his love." Kale's voice dropped low. "Then show him what you've become." I turned toward him, startled. "You mean go?" "If you stay, you give him the victory he wants. If you go, you take it from him." I hesitated. "If I return to Iron Fang, I'll be walking into a den of wolves who once cheered for my humiliation. And they'll bow this time," he said simply. The firelight danced between us. My wolf stirred inside, drawn to his certainty, to the dark, fierce pride in his tone. I thought of the girl who had once walked out of Iron Fang barefoot and bleeding. Then I thought of the woman standing here now, marked by the alpha of Silverclaw, her scars turned into power. When I finally spoke, my voice was steady. "You really think they'll remember me?" Kale's lips curved, slow and dangerous. "Oh, they'll remember. They'll never forget." Chapter 15. Let them remember me. The next morning, the Silverclaw fortress hummed with quiet preparation. Word spread fast. Their Luna was returning to Iron Fang. Servants polished armor, tailors worked through dawn stitching silver embroidery into my gown, and messengers whispered of the storm that was coming. I stood at the mirror, fastening the necklace Kyle had given me. A crescent moon carved from obsidian. The same shape as the scar that had once branded my shame. When Kyle entered, the room seemed smaller. His presence filled it without effort. He looked me over, his gaze slow and deliberate. "You're sure about this?" he asked. "Yes." "You don't owe them anything." "I owe myself closure." He studied me for a moment, then stepped closer until I could feel the heat of him. "If you're going, you won't go alone." I smiled faintly. "I didn't plan to." His hand brushed a curl from my shoulder. "Then let them see what real strength looks like." The air between us thickened. My heart raced. The bond pulsed faintly, electric, alive. "What if they mock you again?" he asked softly. I met his gaze. "Then I'll smile, because the woman they mocked died under the blood moon." Kale's lips curved into something almost like pride. Then it settled. He took my hand, lifting it to his lips. When you walk through their gates, they'll see what the moon made of their cruelty. I exhaled slowly, nerves and resolve twisting together. Let them remember me, I said. Not as the Omega they broke, but as the Luna who survived. His eyes darkened with something fierce, protective. They'll remember, he murmured, because I'll be standing beside you. Outside, the horns of Silverclaw sounded, the call to prepare for departure. I turned one last time toward the mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't the frightened girl of Ironfang. It was the woman who had walked through fire and come out shining. As Kale offered his arm, I took it without hesitation. The road to Ironfang awaited, and this time, I wasn't coming back for forgiveness. I was coming back for peace. Chapter 16. The Gates of Ironfang. The road wound through black cedar and fog, every turn drawing us closer to the land I swore I'd never see again. The Ironfang fortress rose ahead, cold, vast, and carved into the mountainside like a wound that never healed. Torches burned along the walls, casting gold light on banners stitched with the sigil of the wolf's fang. I'd dreamed of this place 1,000 times, but not like this. Not in silver and moon blue. Not beside him. Kyle's carriage rolled to a stop at the gates. His presence filled the air before he even stepped out. The guards who'd once laughed at me bowed low now, trembling beneath the weight of his alpha aura. The wind carried whispers. Is that her? The rejected mate? No, that's the Luna of Silverclaw. When Kale offered me his hand, I took it. My pulse quickened, but not from fear. The ground beneath me felt different now, solid. The same stones that had watched me fall were about to watch me rise. I lifted my chin. The gown Kale had chosen shimmered like liquid moonlight, the mark on my neck glinting faintly beneath my hair. Ready? He murmured. I've been ready since the night he said I wasn't enough, I whispered back. The gates opened with a long groan. Inside, the courtyard glittered with light and laughter, until they saw me. Silence fell like snow. Every pair of eyes turned toward us. Every mouth stopped mid-sentence. The music faltered, and for the first time, I didn't shrink beneath their gaze. I met it head on. Let them look. Let them remember. Chapter 17. Whispers and Bows. We entered the great hall of Ironfang, where chandeliers of crystal hung from the ceiling and the scent of cedar oil and wolf musk filled the air. The nobles lined the walls, their silks whispering as they leaned to stare. I could feel it, the confusion, the disbelief, the dawning fear. Kale's hand rested lightly at the small of my back, steady, possessive, not to claim, but to remind. You belong here. The murmurs grew louder. She was cast out. No Omega shines like that? Who is he? Silverclaw's Alpha, the most powerful of them all. My wolf stirred, reveling in it. The same voices that once called me unworthy now bowed their heads. Even the Omegas lowered their eyes, not from shame, but from awe. When I walked past them, they whispered blessings under their breath. Luna. The word hit me like a wave. Luna, the title I was once denied, now spoken with reverence. At the end of the hall stood the dais, draped in white and gold. Ronan and his new mate sat side by side, their smiles frozen. The sight almost made me laugh. Kale leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. He looks pale. I couldn't help it. A small smile curved my lips. He should be. As we reached the dais, the herald cleared his throat shakily. Alpha Kale of Silverclaw and his Luna, Lady Lyria. The hall erupted in stunned murmurs. I lifted my gaze to Ronan's, steady and unflinching. The man who once made me feel invisible now couldn't look away. Chapter 18. The Beta's Shock. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Ronan sat frozen, his goblet trembling in his hand. I watched the color drain from his face. The same man who once told me I'd never be enough for him now staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. Lyria, he breathed, barely audible. His bride, Lady Celine, shifted beside him, her jeweled crown catching the light. She leaned closer, whispering something sharp, but Ronan didn't hear her. His eyes stayed locked on me. I felt no pity, only clarity. Cale took his place beside me, his posture easy but dangerous, every inch the alpha he was. His presence filled the room like thunder waiting to break. "Beta Ronan," Cale said, voice smooth but edged with steel. "We received your invitation. I must admit the handwriting was bold." A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the guests. Ronan swallowed hard. "I didn't expect—" "Me?" I interrupted softly. "No, you never did." The hall went utterly still. His gaze flickered down to the glowing mark at my neck, the silver crescent that pulsed faintly with life. He knew what it meant. Everyone did. "You're mated," he said hoarsely. "Yes," I replied. "To someone who didn't need a council's permission to see my worth." The crowd murmured. Celine's eyes narrowed, jealousy flashing like a blade. Ronan tried to recover, forcing a brittle smile. Well, the moon must have curious plans. Cale's voice rumbled low beside me. "The moon doesn't make mistakes." I turned to him, meeting his eyes for a heartbeat longer than I should have. The crowd noticed. That was the point. When I faced Ronan again, he couldn't hide it anymore. The jealousy, the regret, the ache of realizing what he'd thrown away. "You shouldn't have come," he muttered. I smiled faintly. "You shouldn't have invited me." Gasps scattered like wind through the hall. For a moment, I could almost taste his humiliation. But instead of bitterness, I felt peace. Because this wasn't revenge, this was reclamation. As Cale's hand brushed mine, grounding me, I knew it. Ronan could keep his golden hall, his noble mate, his hollow pride. I had already won. Chapter 19. The Toast of Shadows. The feast had begun, but the air inside the Iron Fang Hall was tense enough to snap. Laughter echoed off the stone walls, hollow and forced. Silver platters gleamed under torchlight, wine flowed too freely, and yet every eye in the room kept returning, to us, to me. I could feel Ronan's gaze from across the table, a constant burning weight. His bride sat beside him, her jeweled fingers tapping restlessly against the rim of her glass. Kyle, however, looked entirely at ease, too at ease. The predator who knows the forest belongs to him. Then, as if he sensed the perfect moment, he rose slowly from his seat, the soft scrape of his chair silencing the room. "If I may," he said, his voice carrying easily through the hall. Every conversation stopped. Even the torches seemed to lean toward him. Kyle lifted his goblet, the crimson wine catching the flicker of the flames. "A toast," he began, his tone deceptively calm, "to those who mistook diamonds for dust, and only realized their worth when another claimed them." The words slid like silk, but the venom beneath them was unmistakable. The crowd erupted, some gasping, some laughing nervously. Ronan froze. His hand clenched around his goblet so tightly that red wine spilled down his fingers. Cale's gaze never left him. "May the moon grant them clarity, even if it comes too late." He drank, slowly, deliberately. The silence that followed was electric. I didn't need to look at Ronan to feel the humiliation burning off him in waves. I only lifted my own glass and took a quiet sip, the wine sweet on my tongue, victory sweeter still. When I set my glass down, I smiled. Not cruelly, not triumphantly, just enough to let him know that this moment was mine. Chapter 20. The Moonlight Confrontation. Later, when the music resumed and the crowd began to breathe again, I stepped out into the courtyard. The night was cool, the air sharp with pine and smoke. Above us, the moon hung full and bright, watching like an old friend. Kale followed silently, his presence steady behind me. "You handled that well," he murmured. I looked up at the moon. I wasn't the one who needed handling. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement, the flash of gold and white. Ronan. He approached slowly, his expression tight, eyes dark with something between anger and longing. "You've made your point," he said. "Enjoyed your show." I turned toward him fully. "Show? No, Ronan. This is just who I became without you." "You think you're better than us now?" His voice cracked, too loud, too desperate. "No," I said softly. "I just stopped believing I was less." He took a step closer, his scent sharp and familiar. Ash, cedar, pride. "Do you even love him?" The question hit like a blade, but I smiled faintly. "The better question is, did you ever love me?" He didn't answer. Couldn't. Instead, his gaze dropped to my neck, where the faint glow of the alpha mark shimmered beneath moonlight. "What is that?" he whispered, though he already knew. I brushed my fingers against the mark, feeling it pulse with Kale's bond. Alive, radiant, unbreakable. "This," I said quietly, "is what it looks like when the moon decides to bless the woman you cursed." He flinched, the weight of the truth pressing him back a step. Behind me, Kale's voice cut through the silence, calm but dangerous. "You had your chance to protect her. You chose ambition instead." Ronan's jaw tightened. "You don't understand our pack's traditions." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "I don't need to. I understand weakness when I see it." I turned slightly, meeting Kale's gaze. Enough. And then, to everyone's shock, even my own, I stepped closer to Ronan. "You taught me that love can break bones and still not be enough," I said softly. "But you also taught me what I never want to be again." The mark at my neck flared brighter, silver light spilling across the courtyard stones. Gasps rose behind us. Ronan staggered back, eyes wide, as if the glow itself condemned him. "This mark," I whispered, "is not proof that I'm owned. It's proof that I survived you." Chapter 21. The Collapse of a Beta. The commotion drew everyone from the hall. Guests spilled into the courtyard, nobles, omegas, guards, all whispering, their gazes locked on the scene unfolding beneath the moon. Ronan stood trembling, his bride hovering uselessly beside him. The silver light from my mark washed over us all, and in that glow, his crown of pride began to crumble. "Enough!" he barked, but his voice cracked, echoing weakly against the stone. Kale stepped forward then, his aura unfurling like a storm. The air grew heavy, thick with dominance. Every wolf instinctively lowered their gaze, even those who didn't know him. Ronan tried to stand taller, but the weight of Kale's presence pressed down on him until his knees hit the ground. Gasps erupted through the crowd. "Alpha Kale," one elder whispered, bowing low. Kale's voice was quiet, but it carried through every corner of the courtyard. "A beta who betrays the moon's choice is no leader. He's a cautionary tale." Ronan's bride, Celine, backed away, pale and trembling. The realization dawned in her eyes. She hadn't married a wolf. She'd married a shadow of one. Kale turned to me. "Shall we go?" I looked at Ronan one last time. Once I would have begged him to see me. Now I pitied him. "You had everything," I said softly. "But you threw away the only thing that was real." The wind picked up, scattering flower petals across the stones. They landed around him like ashes. He whispered my name, broken, almost human. "Lyria." But I was already walking away. The moment Kale's hand found mine, the crowd parted. The same wolves who once watched my humiliation now bowed as I passed. The air hummed with whispers, reverent, fearful, awestruck. The rejected Luna. The moon's chosen. The alpha's mate. Behind us, I heard the sound of the beta's glass crown finally shatter. his pride collapsing under the weight of everything he'd lost. I didn't look back, because I'd already taken back what mattered most: myself. This act closes the story not with vengeance, but with grace. Lyria has come full circle, once broken, now whole, once scorned, now remembered. Everything is written in her POV, carrying a quiet, lyrical tone, the calm after the storm. Chapter 22. The Ride from Ironfang. The night was still when we left Ironfang. No music, no cheers, only the sound of hooves on stone and the whisper of wind through the pines. The moon followed us, full and pale, its light washing away the last traces of what I'd left behind. The gates of Ironfang closed behind me with a groan, like a sigh from an old wound finally allowed to heal. Kale rode beside me, silent but steady. His cloak fluttered in the cold air, and the faint glow of my mark pulsed softly with each heartbeat. For a long while, I said nothing. The words didn't come easily, not because they weren't there, but because they didn't need to be spoken. The weight that had once filled my chest was gone. When I finally looked at him, Kale's eyes met mine, dark and calm as the forest around us. "You're quiet," he said gently. I was thinking. "About him?" I shook my head. "About me." He smiled faintly. "And what have you decided?" I looked ahead at the moonlit road. "That I don't hate him, not anymore." Kale's brow arched. "Mercy from Aluna. The moon will smile on that." "It's not mercy," I said softly. "It's freedom." He reached across the space between our horses, his gloved fingers brushing mine. "Then it's done." The night stretched out before us, endless, peaceful. I could feel my wolf resting quietly inside me, no longer restless, no longer aching. For the first time in years, I wasn't running from anything. I was simply going home. Chapter 23. The Song of Silverclaw. When we returned to Silverclaw, the fortress glowed like a dream. Lanterns lined the walls, silver banners rippled in the wind, and the courtyard was filled with wolves. My pack now. My family. The moment they saw us, a howl rose. Low at first, then swelling until it filled the night. It wasn't a call of battle this time, but of welcome. Kale dismounted first, offering his hand. When I stepped down, the sound grew louder, rolling across the mountains like thunder. "Luna! Luna Lyria!" The chant caught, spreading from one voice to another until the entire pack cried my name beneath the stars. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I didn't hide them. Every scar, every wound, every ache had led me here, to this moment. Kyle turned to me, his smile soft and unguarded. "They see you now." I shook my head. "No, they see themselves, what they could be." He looked at me for a long moment before saying quietly, "That's what makes you a Luna." As the celebration went on, drums beat in rhythm with the heart of the mountain. Wolves danced in circles, firelight flickering across fur and skin. I stood at the center of it all, the silver glow of my mark reflecting in their eyes. The same moon that had once watched me cry now bathed me in its light. And when Kale took my hand and drew me into the dance, laughter spilled from my lips, real, unrestrained, alive. The past had lost its claws. Chapter 24. The Legend. They whisper years later, the story still lived. On nights when the moon hung low and silver, the pups would gather by the hearth, their eyes wide as the elders spoke of the reclaimed Luna. They said she had once been rejected beneath the same moon that later crowned her. They said she walked into her old life with an alpha at her side and left without taking revenge, only her peace. They said the moon wept the night she was cast aside and smiled the night she was marked again. Sometimes, when the wind howled through the mountains, I could almost hear the whispers. Never underestimate a woman the moon once wept for. I would smile when I heard it, because it wasn't just a story. It was a reminder. Power didn't come from claws or rank. It came from standing tall when the world tried to break you. On quiet nights, when Kale lay beside me and the fire burned low, I would trace the mark at my neck and whisper to the moon, "You were right to make me wait." Kale would stir then, half asleep, and murmur against my hair, "Still thinking?" "Always," I'd whisper back. But now, it doesn't hurt anymore. Outside, the pack would sleep in peace, the world would keep turning, and the moon, faithful as ever, would shine down on Silverclaw, where an Omega once became a queen.